Meat City, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another episode of Kicking Aces here in World of Tanks. And today we are rolling out on a standard battle on the Heilbronn map. And the tank we're in, well, it's an interesting one. It is, of course, as you can see, the FV4003 Centurion Mark V AVRE, or as I like to call it, because all that other stuff is quite the mouthful, the AVRE. And I don't know if that's a proper short form for this tank, or if there's other short forms for this tank out there. If there are, and you want to let me know in the comments, that would be great. But for the purposes of this video, that's how I refer to the tank. It's the AVRE. And this tank it's of course, how do you get it? Well, it was the ultimate battle pass reward from the previous season of World of Tanks. And so you had to spend 6,000 gold on the battle pass, the ultimate version, and you were gifted this tank for free. Well, early on in the previous season, I did not have the 6,000 gold, so I didn't have this tank for the vast majority of the season. I saw it a lot. Of course, I saw all the comments and threads and discussion about this tank, about how it was OP, about how it was breaking the game. I saw all of it, and I wasn't quite able to get the tank. I just didn't have the gold, and I don't spend money on the game. And then right near the end of the season, I was able to get the last of the gold that I needed from a mission that was going on at the time. And of course, based on that, I wanted to get the tank. It seems so different and unique that I wanted to have it available for things that may come up. Missions, contracts, anything like that. This tank just seems to be so different than anything else I have in my garage or that I've played. I thought it would be valuable to have it. So I don't play this tank often, but once a day to get the daily double. I'm currently working on the machine contract, so I do play it every once in a while. And what is it about this tank that makes it so controversial? Is it OP? Well, I'll get into that a little bit, and also some of the things I think that you can take advantage of if you run into this tank if you don't have it yourself. But first, from my limited experience playing the tank, I see why people think it's OP, and I'm probably one of them as well, because it allows you, or allows me anyway, to play the game in a way that I can't play any other tank in my arsenal, in my garage. And when I'm going up against it, it creates these weird kind of balancing situations and cost reward analysis that you really don't have to make with any other tank in the game. And so let's talk specifics. What I mean by that is, if you can put this tank in an advantageous situation, like here, the city line, on the one line on Heilbronn, you're in really good shape because you have a tight corridor. Nothing can flank you or shoot you from the side. You can put all of your frontal armor, which is very, very good, towards any approaching enemies, and they can't dodge or cause you to miss. You fire big explosive shells in this tank. They do travel a bit slow, but if something's trapped in this corridor with you, it's not going to be dodging, and you're not going to have to aim or give lead or anything else like that. And on top of that, if you hit something with your shells, whether it's a well-armored turret of the IS-7 or something else that's really heavily armored, you're still going to do a ton of damage. And I'm talking 400-500 damage hitting the turret of an IS-7. I've seen that. I've done that in games. And then, if you hit something that's less armored, you can one-shot artillery. If a medium tank, a tier 10 medium tank shows you its side and you put a shot in, you can nearly one-shot them. Maybe you can one-shot them if you get extremely lucky. Tier 8s, oh my god, forget about it. If you shoot a tier 8 in this thing, it's gone. So you can blunder around a corner, use that super heavy frontal armor to take a shot, usually with impunity. It's not impervious. There are ways to damage this tank, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can really rely on the armor, come around the corner, fire a shot. You can auto-aim. If you hit anywhere on the enemy tank, you're doing a huge chunk of damage, and then you can pull back and go for your reload. Of course, the tank does have a long reload, but if you can control the engagement, if you're going around a corner, if they can't trade multiple shots for one of yours, well, then you're going to win that fight almost every single time, because you can come around the corner, you're guaranteed to do damage if you hit. It's going to be 400, 500 damage, and even if they can damage you, they're not likely to do so because of your armor. And even if they do damage you, it's probably not going to be as much as you hit them for. So yeah, that is an interesting, unique dynamic, but it also kind of takes something away from the game. You don't have to aim for weak spots. You don't have to think carefully about counting their reload or when do I come around the corner, right? You can rely on the tank's strength to make up for so much of your own weakness or so much of your own laziness. You really can play this game almost on autopilot. When it's good, it's very, very good. And when it's in situations like this, as you can see, we were controlling the engagement there with the E100. I mean, one of the most heavily armored tanks in the game, and we could come around the corner, put a shot in, hit its turret, it doesn't matter. We're not bouncing, we're doing explosive damage, and we're just taking chunks off time and time again. So what are the weaknesses of the tank? Because it does have some. And first and foremost for me, since I've been playing with this tank, is the frontal gun depression. It is terrible in this tank. And it's because of that grate and shovel that's on the front. That blocks the gun from depressing over the front of the tank. And so you can use that in some situations to your advantage. If the tank is facing you from the front and you're small or short, or especially if the AVRE is coming up over a rise, then that gun's going to be pointing up and they're going to have to come all the way over that ridge. They're going to have to crest the top of the ridge to get the tank back on level ground to get the gun facing towards you. Otherwise, you can't depress that gun and work a ridge line in this tank, especially from the front. Now, from the side, now you gain that gun depression. As soon as the turret is off to the side and no longer aligned with that front grate, yeah, you do get some decent gun depression, but the side armor of this tank is certainly vulnerable. If you can keep it angled, yeah, you're going to bounce a number of shots in the game, but it is definitely more vulnerable and weaker than this tank is from the front. So try to manipulate that frontal engagement. If they're coming up a ridge, keep them to the front. And if they start to turn the tank to the side, then you can get their side as well and do some damage to this tank. The other thing that you can do is not trade 1 for 1, trade multiple shots for 1 shot. Now the problem is, in order to do that, the tank needs to fire a shot. And if the tank fires a shot at you, well, it's probably doing a lot of damage. So yeah, I've been in those situations where I'm against an AVRE. Maybe there's 2 or 3 of us on my allies team. There's an AVRE against us, and the 3 of us, we're all ready to go. We can run in, and I know we can take that tank out. But if we all go, one of us is going to get shot, and one of us might get taken out completely or be on 10% of our hit points, even if we started on full. And so who's going to be the one when you're playing with a bunch of randoms, right? If you're in a platoon, you can coordinate. But if you're in a random battle, who's going to be the one that says, yeah, I'll sacrifice, I'll take the hit so that you guys can jump in? And sometimes it's just going to be you, and you hope that they follow you in, because the reload on this gun is super long. It's 20 seconds, can be a little more, a little less depending on the loadout of the tank, but at least 20 seconds, I think, unless you have it super max kitted out, and maybe a little bit more, maybe up to 22 seconds. So if the AVRE fires, you can run in. And if you're in something like a medium tank, you're going to get 4 shots off, maybe. And so you can run in, you get the side of the tank, you get the rear of the tank, bang, 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 bang. As he's reloading, you're going around, he has to turn, and then your other allies, hopefully you're not just by yourself, they can come over too, and now you've got the thing surrounded, and now you can easily take one out. If it's one-on-one, yeah, you need to know how much damage you can do in 3 shots. If you're going to get 3 shots in those 20 seconds, do you have enough DPM to take out the tank before it reloads? Because not many tanks in the game are going to survive 2 hits from the AVRE. So if you have to run over the hill and take that first hit to start the engagement, bang, 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 you get your 3 shots in, and it's reloaded, and it fires at you again, yeah, you're probably not going to get any more shots for a second round, unless you get lucky. So that is kind of, in a nutshell, in an abbreviated sense, what gameplay for and against the AVRE is like. It gives you these kind of superpowers in game that other tanks don't have. And it has its kryptonite if you can find the right situation and put those disadvantages that it has to use, but it's not always a given. And so what does that lead to? Well, in my experience, I haven't played many games in this tank, but 20, 30 or so, maybe at the time of this video, you get games like this, where just a ton of damage and assistance and blocking, and it's just crazy. And when you do that, you have these great results. They're not even an ace tanker. I don't know what it takes to get an ace tanker in this tank, but let me assure you, it is a lot, because some people are absolutely smashing in this tank. So you can see that that was a very close game. We did pull out a win there. It was kind of back and forth. It was close throughout. And that's going to be my stance on doing videos in this tank for the channel, right? Because a lot of the gameplay is going to be the same. You just kind of bundle forward, take hits, and smash them with that high explosive damage. So the game in this one was good. And unfortunately, we didn't get to comment on it and talk about it a whole lot because this was the intro video for this tank. But you can see we were able to kind of turn the tide of that battle. It was close throughout. And then we had some key engagements in the mid game after we broke through the town there to clean up the enemy and get the numbers back in our favor, and then turn back towards our own base to get those final kills. So it was a really, really fun and interesting and competitive battle, which I thought made a good video. But then on top of that, yeah, if I have a crazy good game, 9,000 combined, 10,000 combined, those as well might make the cut for videos for this channel. But, you know, 5K and 3 kills or 4 kills, I mean, that's kind of standard for this tank. If you do anything other than, you know, get really unlucky at the start of the battle and you get swarmed, you can be destroyed without doing much of anything. But other than that, if you stick around, if you keep your head, if you don't get unlucky, yeah, 5K and 4 kills, that's kind of just going to happen a lot of the times. But in this game, it was a pretty special total in terms of the damage numbers. 4,310 damage, 4,939 assistance damage just from us pushing and constantly spotting the enemy, and also some tracking damage because those big explosive hits certainly have a tendency to track the enemy vehicles as well. And then over 3,000 damage blocked from our armor. So crazy, well-rounded game. Direct damage, assistance damage, some frags, some block damage, some detections. This tank can do it all, and this was a prime example of it. And on top of that, with firing all those shots in a tier 10 battle, we still made 24,000 credits profit without a premium account. On the medal page, again, it's a fairly impressive collection of medals, but not something that's super rare from the tank. We did get ourselves a Hand of God, Fire for Effect, Bruiser, Shell Proof, which is an interesting one, requiring that you block more damage than the total hit points of your vehicle and still survive, a Steel Wall, and a Spotter. Not too many tanks in the game that I know of where you can get a Spotter medal and a Steel Wall in the same game. There are some, and there are some situations where it can happen, but it's not uncommon in the AVRE. And all of that damage, all of those medals, all of the craziness that we did still only amounted to a second class mastery badge. So yeah, people are having some ridiculously high ceiling games in this tank. In terms of a shout out for our allies, we had a number of allies that have a really good game. And so any of the guys in the top 5, 6 there, putting up 3,000 damage each, some of them 4,000 damage each. Great games all around. So a shout out to the top third of our team for just going and getting some damage and getting some work done in this battle. But I think it was the K91 who was with us on the push through the town that helped make that initial run and that flank and get a bunch of assistance damage there and do a bunch of direct damage, I should say, based on our assistance, right? They helped pump up our numbers. I'm almost sure it was the K91. So we'll give a special shout out to Wolf Charm 5012 from the Anger clan as our teammate of the match. And we can see that all of that damage, over 9,000 combined damage, led to 1,516 XP, which again got us that second class mastery badge. So that is going to wrap up this video, my first real video. I think there's a shorts video that I put together in the AVRE showing what it can do. But my first real video talking about the tank, its strengths, its weaknesses, the controversy about this thing. Is it overpowered? I kind of think so. Does it break the game? I don't think it breaks the game, but it definitely makes you think about it and approach it in a way that is different than any other tank that I've thought about before while playing the game. So I'll leave the rest of that decision up to you guys as to whether you think it's breaking the game or just changing it in a way that maybe we don't like so much. Feel free to let me know in the comments for this video. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.